Daniel Ricciardo's job as a full-time race car driver at Red Bull has ended, and it looks like the Austrian team is not ready to give up on the Australian driver just yet. The value that Ricciardo brings to this sport when it comes to marketing and getting new business deals is huge, and Red Bull knows this better than anyone else. Big sponsors like Visa, Cash App, and Hugo Boss are already upset that Ricciardo had to be replaced. Could Red Bull find him a job that fits his needs better, and if so, will Danny accept it? One of the saddest moments in the 2024 Formula One season is Daniel Ricciardo leaving, and the fact that he drove his last race with this team without us even knowing about it. While the way everything was handled was pretty bad, with hints about Singapore being the last race shown by Ricciardo's behavior and after-race interview, Red Bull is sure that the driver had lots of time to prove himself, and basically he didn't. This, however, doesn't mean that we are not going to see him more with the team that started it all. And when talking about it, Helmut Marko has given quite good feedback on the effect that Ricciardo has outside of racing. He talked about the possible job that he could have in Red Bull after his racing life. Marko said Daniel Ricciardo is, especially in the United States, one of the most popular drivers. I don't believe he would want to try NASCAR, and on the other hand, if he is no longer a racing driver, I don't know if he would then feel like doing all the PR activities that come along with the ambassador job. This would be similar to what Hamilton was looking for but didn't get from Mercedes, as the Brackley-based team has decided that Hamilton's request for an ambassador job was just too big for them to handle. On the other hand, it's still unknown whether or not Ricciardo would accept anything like this, because he needs to answer some more important questions right now, such as whether or not he wants to continue racing. It's pretty obvious that there are few to no teams where he could look for a seat, with Sauber being the only one left with an empty spot for 2025, and Ricciardo was not on their short list at all. The Swiss team is choosing between Bottas, Bortoleto, and Colapinto as of now, but what we must not forget is how important Ricciardo was when it comes to Racing Bulls, bringing some important sponsors to the team and helping the team to currently be 6th place in the Constructor Championship. Visa, Cash App, and Hugo Boss all said they wanted to join the sport because Ricciardo was there, as they all know how good he is for business. As a matter of fact, a couple of hours before Red Bull made Ricciardo's leaving official, there were reports that Visa and Cash App threatened to leave Racing Bulls because they'll lose a huge part of their business if Daniel isn't there. We don't have to look that far to see how big of an influence Ricciardo has on the Formula One world. Just look at how his happy smile and his charm have brought tons of new fans through the documentary Drive to Survive. Although his career has taken a wrong turn after leaving Red Bull, Ricciardo's presence in the sport has stayed positive, and that has a lot to do with the American market as well. We must not forget how he entered the Austin GP by riding a horse, mixing with the culture of the local people there, and what this shows is that Ricciardo is truly a man who can do the job of an ambassador without any problems. Again, it's up to him to choose, of course, and right now racing doesn't seem to be on his mind, as he also understands that there is no place that he would feel happy with the current situation on the grid. But then again, Ricciardo has also said no to being a backup driver for Red Bull, which opened up the door for Isaac Hajar, and also gave us a look at what the future holds for the 8-time race winner. If Ricciardo accepts this job, it would definitely help his team in growing their market and influence in the USA, because of the new partnership with Ford that is set to start from 2026 onwards. And if I were Ricciardo, I wouldn't have bad feelings towards Red Bull, because they were the team that took him in once he was treated badly by McLaren, and then when he wanted to leave them back in 2018, they offered him more money just so that he would be able to stay with them. The fact that everything happened the way it did in Singapore is definitely a bit of a dark moment in his career with the team, but with the ambassador job that he could get from the Austrian team, anything can be fixed, and maybe Ricciardo can find love in doing something else other than racing. Helmut Marko has been quite direct when it comes to Ricciardo's racing skills being lost the day that he decided to leave Red Bull, which might or might not influence other teams choosing him as a full-time racing driver in the future. When talking about this, Marko said, "I think the decision to leave Red Bull Racing was the turning point in his career. Then he didn't have a winning car at either Renault or McLaren. He did win at Monza, but those were special circumstances. I don't know what exactly happened, but if we knew, we would have helped him, but the speed and above all his late braking, and then he goes left or right. In these few years he tried, but it was no longer there. The killer instinct was gone. Ricciardo had certain doubts about the Honda engine, and apparently he listened more to the sweet talk of Renault and Cyril Abiteboul. Finally, there wasn't much difference between what Renault offered him and what we offered. At the end of the day, Formula One is a business that the teams must take a lot of care for and make sure that they find steady funding. The problem won't be Red Bull, because they were at the top of the table, and it would be very easy for them to get sponsors, but on the other hand, the sister team Racing Bulls, which was previously known as AlphaTauri and Toro Rosso, has been renamed thanks to the huge money injections that have been brought by the sponsors we just mentioned. With this in mind, Ricciardo's leaving from the team as a full-time racing driver will have some kind of effects on the team's money. Not to mention that Visa and Cash App are title sponsors of the team, which means they are bringing the biggest amount of money in terms of funding, and we couldn't say that didn't actually help Racing Bulls in terms of performance. The results might not have been there as he failed to beat Tsunoda in a fair battle, but the experience and the feedback he gave to the engineers did help the Faenza-based team in building competitive cars that would then climb 2 positions in the Constructors' Championship compared to last year. In terms of money, this would be an additional $20 million to the bank account of Racing Bulls from Formula One alone. Not to mention the fact that they might be able to get new sponsors thanks to the better performance from last year. Still, Lawson is now the man who has some pretty big shoes to fill, and we're not talking about performance. The New Zealand driver is without a contract for 2025, because there are still some big unknowns about the drivers in Red Bull, so in a crazy twist, we might be looking at a team of Verstappen and Lawson from 2025 onwards. The way that Ricciardo was treated in Singapore and drove his last race without a proper goodbye has made all of the Formula One fans a bit angry, but according to Marco, the 8-time race winner was told on time about this situation and there was nothing hidden from him. Furthermore, the veteran Austrian said, "I think it was clearly told that he has to be much better than Yuki Tsunoda, and he only managed to do that in a few races, so it was clear that this story of the lost son coming back to Red Bull Racing unfortunately didn't work out." He said very well that he is at peace with himself and has accepted the situation, and we will see what his plans for the future are. The timing of Ricciardo's release was related to many different factors and obligations. He was told in the worthy farewell performance was, I think, the fastest lap that still showed what potential he has. Not all the time, and not at the level that would have made sense for him coming to Red Bull Racing, but that was a perfect performance. With all this in mind, what do you think about the opportunity for Ricciardo with this new ambassador job in Red Bull? Let us know down in the comments below, and once you do that, have a look at the video that's appearing on your screen right now.